Have you ever checked your bank account right before payday, seen a number that looks dangerously close to zero, and thought to yourself, where did it all go? You are working hard. You are putting in the hours. Maybe you even got a raise recently. But somehow, month after month, the money just vanishes. It feels like you are running on a treadmill, sweating, exhausting yourself, but never actually moving forward financially. If that sounds familiar, take a deep breath. You are not alone, and more importantly, it is not entirely your fault. We are constantly told that the secret to wealth is just making more money. Hustle harder, get a second job, start a side gig. But the harsh reality of personal finance is this: it doesn't matter how much water you pour into a bucket if the bucket has a massive hole in the bottom. Earning more money without a system to manage it just leads to more expensive problems. You upgrade your apartment, you buy a nicer car, you eat at fancier restaurants, and suddenly, you are making six figures but you are still living paycheck to paycheck. This is called lifestyle creep, and it is the silent killer of wealth. But what if you could fix the bucket? What if you could build a financial system so simple, so intuitive, that it runs in the background of your life, completely on autopilot? A system that guarantees your bills are paid, ensures you are building wealth for the future, and, this is the most important part, still gives you permission to spend money on the things you actually love, completely guilt-free. Today, we are going to break down the absolute best framework for taking control of your finances. It is called the 50/30/20 rule. I am going to walk you through exactly how it works, the psychology behind why it is so effective, and how you can implement it today, regardless of how much money you make right now. We are going to strip away all the confusing Wall Street jargon and get down to the practical, everyday reality of managing your money. By the end of this video, you will have a clear, actionable blueprint to transform your financial life. Let's start with the basics. The 50/30/20 rule is a budgeting framework popularized by Senator Elizabeth Warren in her book, All Your Worth, The Ultimate Lifetime Money Plan. The beauty of this rule lies in its simplicity. Instead of tracking every single penny, saving receipts, and making dozens of complex budgeting categories that make you want to pull your hair out, you only have to worry about three main buckets. You take your after-tax income, that is your take-home pay, the money that actually hits your bank account after the government takes its share, and you divide it into three percentages. 50% goes to your needs. 30% goes to your wants. And 20% goes to your savings, investments, and debt payoff. That is it. 50, 30, 20. Let's dive deep into the first bucket, the 50%. Your needs. This is the foundation. Exactly half of your take-home pay should be allocated to the absolute essentials of life. These are the bills that, if you stopped paying them, would severely disrupt your life. We are talking about survival and basic security. What falls into this category? First, housing. Your rent or your mortgage payment. Next, basic utilities. Electricity, water, gas, and yes, in today's world, a basic internet connection is a need. Then, groceries. Notice I said groceries, not dining out. We are talking about the food you buy at the supermarket to sustain yourself. Transportation is also a need. You need to get to work. This covers your car payment, auto insurance, gas, or a monthly public transit pass. Finally, minimum debt payments and basic insurance, like health insurance if it is not already deducted from your paycheck. Now, this is where most people get tripped up. We have a terrible habit of justifying our desires by calling them needs. You need transportation to get to work. You do not need a brand new, fully loaded SUV with a massive monthly payment. A reliable used car fulfills the need. The luxury upgrade? That belongs in another category. You need food to survive. You do not need to buy premium organic everything and order Uber Eats 3 times a week. When you first calculate your needs, you might find that they take up 60, 70, or even 80% of your income. If you live in a high cost of living city like New York, London, or San Francisco, hitting that 50% mark can feel entirely impossible. If your needs are currently blowing past the 50% limit, you have to face a hard truth. You have two choices, and neither of them is easy. You either have to aggressively cut your fixed costs, meaning you might have to move to a cheaper apartment, get a roommate, or sell your expensive car, or you have to significantly increase your income. There is no magic formula to bypass this math. If your basic survival consumes your entire paycheck, you are mathematically trapped. Getting your needs down to 50% of your income is the hardest part of this rule, but it is also the most critical step toward financial peace. Let's move on to the second bucket, and honestly, the one that makes this entire system actually work. The 30%, your wants. A lot of financial advice out there is incredibly rigid and punishing. They tell you to cut out every single joy in your life. Stop buying lattes, stop going to the movies, cancel Netflix, and sit in a dark room until you are a millionaire. That advice is fundamentally flawed because it ignores human psychology. Budgeting like a monk is a lot like crash dieting. You might restrict yourself entirely for a month, but eventually, your willpower breaks, you binge, and you end up in a worse position than when you started. Financial health should not feel like a punishment. It should bring you a sense of healing and stability. That is why 30% of your income is dedicated entirely to your wants. This is your lifestyle money. This is the money you use to actually enjoy the life you are working so hard to build. What falls into the wants category? Everything that isn't essential for survival. Dining out, ordering takeout, grabbing that morning coffee. Entertainment, like movie tickets, concerts, or video games. All of your subscription services, Netflix, Spotify, the gym membership you rarely use. Vacations, new clothes, hobbies, and gadgets. Here is the psychological magic of the 30% bucket. By explicitly giving yourself permission to spend this money, you eliminate the guilt. When you buy a coffee or a new pair of shoes, you don't have to stress about whether you are ruining your financial future. You already know your needs are covered, and you already know your future is funded. This 30% is yours to spend however you see fit. It provides the breathing room necessary to make this a lifelong habit rather than a temporary restriction. However, a want is still a want. If you want to take an expensive vacation, but it exceeds your 30% allowance for the month, you cannot steal from your needs or your savings bucket. You have to wait, save up your wants allowance over a few months, and then make the purchase. This teaches discipline and delayed gratification, which are essential skills for building wealth. Finally, we reach the third and most powerful bucket. The 20%, savings, investing, and debt payoff. This is the engine of your wealth. The first two buckets, needs and wants, are focused on the present. The 20% bucket is entirely focused on buying your future freedom. If you are currently carrying high-interest consumer debt, like credit card balances or personal loans, this entire 20% needs to be weaponized against that debt. High-interest debt is a financial emergency. The interest rates are designed to keep you trapped in a cycle of payments forever. Pay the minimums on all your debts out of your 50% needs bucket, but take this extra 20% and crush your highest interest debt as fast as humanly possible. Once your toxic debt is cleared, this 20% shifts to building your financial fortress. The very first step is creating an emergency fund. You need 3 to 6 months of basic living expenses sitting in a high-yield savings account. This is not investment money. This is insurance. When your car breaks down, when you face a sudden medical bill, or when you unexpectedly lose your job, this emergency fund stands between you and financial ruin. It turns a crisis into a mere inconvenience. It brings incredible peace of mind. Once your emergency fund is fully stocked, that 20% becomes pure investment capital. This is where you start buying assets that generate money while you sleep. You invest in index funds, the S&P 500, retirement accounts, or real estate. This is how you escape the trap of trading your time for money. Every dollar you invest is a tiny employee working for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, compounding over time. Let's make this completely concrete with a hypothetical scenario. Let's say you take home exactly $4,000 a month after taxes. Applying the rule, 50%, which is $2,000, goes to your needs. This covers your rent, groceries, car insurance, gas, and basic utilities. You look at your expenses, and maybe your rent is a bit high, so you start meal prepping to keep your grocery bill down to make sure you stay within that $2,000 limit. Next, 30%, which is $1,200, goes to your wants. That is roughly $300 a week. That is a significant amount of money. You can use that for weekend dinners with friends, buying a new jacket, maintaining your streaming subscriptions, and maybe saving a portion of it each month for a summer trip. You spend this money freely and happily. Finally, 20%, which is $800, goes to your future. If you have credit card debt, that $800 hits the principal balance like a sledgehammer every single month. If you are debt-free, you are funneling $800 a month into your investments. Over decades, simply investing that $800 a month into a standard index fund could easily make you a multimillionaire through the power of compound interest. The beauty of this framework is that it scales with you. If you get a promotion and your take-home pay jumps to $6,000 a month, your lifestyle gets to upgrade. Your wants bucket grows to $1,800. But crucially, your savings bucket also automatically increases to $1,200. You avoid the trap of spending your entire raise on a bigger car payment. Your future gets richer as your present gets more comfortable. Now, how do you actually implement this without driving yourself crazy tracking every receipt? You automate it. The moment your paycheck hits your main checking account, the system should take over. You set up automatic transfers. You calculate your 20%, and you have the bank automatically transfer that money into your savings or investment accounts within 24 hours of getting paid. You pay yourself first. By moving the 20% immediately, you never even see it. You can't spend money that isn't sitting in your checking account. Then, you calculate your 30% for wants. I highly recommend opening a secondary checking account specifically for your wants, perhaps with a debit card attached. Transfer that 30% into the fun account. When you go out to a restaurant or buy something online, you only use that card. When the balance hits zero, you are done spending on wants until the next paycheck. It forces discipline without requiring complex spreadsheets. Whatever is left in your main checking account, that 50%, is used exclusively to pay your rent, your bills, and buy groceries. If you are a freelancer or have a fluctuating income, the rule still applies, but you manage it by percentages rather than fixed dollar amounts. Have a spectacular month where you make $10,000. Great. $2,000 automatically goes to investments, $3,000 goes to a wants fund, and the rest covers your needs and rolls over to buffer the slow months. Managing money shouldn't be about restriction, fear, or constant anxiety. It is about intentionally directing your resources to build a life you actually want to live. The 50/30/20 rule is a powerful, elegant solution because it balances the demands of survival today, the desire for happiness right now, and the absolute necessity of security tomorrow. Start today. Look at your last month of bank statements. Categorize your spending into these 3 buckets. You will probably be shocked by how out of balance your current spending is. But awareness is the first step. Recalibrate, set up your automation, and watch as financial anxiety is replaced by quiet confidence. You are in control now. Ensure your money is working as hard for you as you are working for it.